Hi, this is Al Fuentes. Welcome to the Self-Empowerment Experience. Join me and my guests on a journey of their stories of their lives and how they have found empowerment through everyday life. It's inspiring, it's uplifting, it's exciting. People from all walks of life come on the program to share their tools, their resources, their insights, so that you may benefit from them. Thank you for stopping by and tuning in. So, welcome to the Self-Empowerment Experience. Another episode.
Thank you.
David Delorenzo, known as the Delo.
Yes.
So, I'm really excited to have you on for so many reasons. One, how animated you are, how captivating you are on any kind of medium, especially social media, where I think you have one of the most fantastic Instagram pages and stories, just because of who you are and what you share. And
thank you.
It's been a lot of fun to get to know you and to work with you. And more importantly, I'm excited to learn more about you. And there's two places I really wanted to start. And one of them is the rocker you, which I saw a picture of you having long hair. How long was that hair?
A little past midway in my back.
Yeah, so super long hair.
And it was
you were
curly.
With like a group, what was a famous group?
Yeah, Aerosmith.
You were with Aerosmith, full rocker,
Yeah.
mullet. Would you consider that a mullet?
No, that was really long hair. I had the mullet more or less with Van Halen. I have another picture with
Van Halen.
Yeah.
So there's that part of you, and then there is the Star Wars you. And these two things, I feel like, are stories that I want to know more about. Because they do lead to kind of this journey that you're on, the person that you are today, both in personality and persona, but also when you think about Star Wars and the spirituality of what that story represents, and having that power and learning how to channel it. So I think we have to start with Aerosmith, Van Halen.
Yeah, start with the rockers.
Yeah, tell me about, like, when was that era? How did that even come about?
Well, we can start from the very beginning where, as a young child, I was introduced to, like we all are, we're introduced to music. Growing up, my mom was more of a Rolling Stone, Chris Christopherson, Willie Nelson sort of fan. I have two sisters, one who had passed many years ago to leukemia, but she was also, like I idolized her, as a young kid. They were much older than me. They were stepsisters through another marriage, but sisters nonetheless. And she brought home AC/DC. And I couldn't have been more than, 8 or 9 years old or whatever. So I listened to that. Wow. So the first 3 records I ever picked up were records or cassettes. And I remember my first boombox. It was 2 speakers that were able to be detached from the physical box.
They would latch in and they would separate apart. Yeah.
So I went to Sears and I got Lionel Richie, Penny Lover, one album that sold all that, all those copies. I bought Michael Jackson.
Kind of laying down.
Totally.
Yeah.
Bought Michael Jackson Thriller. And I bought 1984 by Van Halen.
Ooh.
And that record changed my life.
Really?
So my father, my stepdad, I have many multiples of family, so I just call them dad and stuff like that. I don't see a difference in the connection of who those people are in my life. They're just people that love me and care about me. But so my dad that I lived with at the time, his name was Jimmy. And so one of the songs on the 1984 Van Halen was Top Jimmy. And I would crank that on 10 upstairs in my bedroom, whenever he was home, just to, kind of get a buzz out of him. And then other days I would take those speakers and I would put them up on my windowsill. And I lived in Atlanta, Georgia, and I lived on a street that had a cul-de-sac. And the cul-de-sac, I was the second house on probably a street of like 20 houses. So I was the second one, and you'd go up another, 10 houses to get to the even, and then 10 down. And if I wasn't allowed to go out and play and people were up on the cul-de-sac, I would take my speakers and I would just crank Panama or Hot for Teachers as loud as I could. Yeah, and they could all hear it at the very, very top. And of course, my parents would yell at me. But no, I mean, that was the catalyst for my envisioning too. And I tell this story quite a bit, and it's pretty cool. So like every young kid at that age, I would have, well, not every, but in my example, I would have posters of all these rock bands. And we grow up idolizing and thinking these people are untouchable and thinking that they're something bigger than life. And, because we're kids, that's what we do. We fantasize, we relish in all that. Same, with Star Wars when I was a kid. So Eddie Van Halen was one of those, Van Halen in general, where I just, something just resonated with me with the music. So after I bought 1984, I went backwards and I bought all of their other, 6 records that they'd come out with before, and I loved them all within the same. And I just was infatuated with Eddie and his guitar playing, this and that. So I distinctly remember, I couldn't have been but 12, 13 years old, laying in bed in Atlanta, looking up at my ceiling, and looking around my room and saying, one day I will meet Eddie Van Halen. And lo and behold, fast forward, I'm in my 20s. It's 1998. I know this because I just got my thing framed with Eddie and I in the band. It was 1998. I end up working at Warner Brothers, and I end up working for Van Halen on the album that they released that day.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it was really cool.
Yeah, and then how long were you in that rocker stint, kind of with Warner Brothers? Because, Aerosmith, Van Halen, were you...
Yeah.
You definitely looked like the rocker guy at the time.
Yeah, I definitely...
If you want to have a really good, enjoyable Instagram feed, follow the Delo. But more importantly...
I am the Delo.
Yeah, I am the Delo. But you got to search for that picture. Because are you in a flannel, if I remember correctly, or something like that? Long hair. Did you have a mustache?
I had a goatee. Yeah, the chin of it went down to like my chest. It was like the Alice in Chains goatee back in the day. Oh my gosh.
I was like, whoa. And so how long was that? How long did you work at Warner Brothers?
So I came back here, Arizona, that is. I came back to Arizona after being in Atlanta through my parents' transfer, and I came to live with my other dad because when you're 16 and you know everything, the grass is always greener. So, I basically told my parents back in Atlanta, I guess a Twisted Sister quote, "We're not going to take it," and so I moved. Totally. I'm like, I'm not going to take it.
Are you surprised I know all this?
I'm going to move to my dad's house. Not really. You're the same, what do I say, physical aspect on Earth time frame as I am. So.
Yeah, and my sister, who was older, I think she was, I think I was in 7th grade when she was a senior. She was into AC/DC, so my actual first exposure was AC/DC, Back in Black.
That's awesome.
And I was jamming to that.
Listened to that last night.
Oh man, the whole album, cassette at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just it started things for me.
Thunderstruck. Just 2 days ago, I pulled out my Eddie Van Halen imitation guitar my wife bought me for Christmas last year, and I played Back in Black on it. And it was just like such a feeling of, and what's funny is I have a TikTok account too, because as you had mentioned earlier, I love the social media aspect of things and creating attention and all that for the branding and all that I do. So I posted the video of me, playing Back in Black on TikTok, and I get this kid who's like, "Oh yeah, boomer," So now what I've come to realize is that people our age, we're called boomers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily a good thing. I don't think. I think they're doing it because they're millennials or younger than millennials, and so boomers now like screw up everything, like screw up the world. And I got to hear it from my 18-year-old kid that's like, stupid boomers, when somebody like doesn't do something that's older than 40. Yeah, we're boomers. So I was like, so I responded back. I'm like, yeah, boomer up, man. Cool. But back to your question. So I came back to Arizona. I went to ASU after a few stints at Northern Arizona University. I ended up, it's too cold up there, so I went to ASU, and I got an internship with a company called WEA, Warner Elektra Atlantic, the 3 of the largest labels at the time in music. And WEA was the distribution company for those labels. So if Motley Crue came out with a record on Elektra Records, WEA would be the distribution firm that would distribute the record. If the Chili Peppers came out with something on Warner Brothers or Van Halen on Warner Brothers, WEA would be. So I got to deal not just with Warner Brothers, but with many different artists on different labels, kind of all cool. Under that umbrella.
So who, like top five, like you have Van Halen, of course, Aerosmith, a couple others that are just...
Oh gosh. I mean, I'm...
Did you meet the Chili Peppers?
Oh yeah. No, I worked for them as well. I worked for a whole bunch of bands that nobody's even heard of. The Prodigy. I mean, this band, like back in their day, and you know, unfortunately, the lead singer ended up killing himself last year, I believe. But they were just amazing. They were this at their time. "Fat of the Land" is their record. They had the Firestarter and "Breathe" and just some amazing songs. It was like taking rock and techno and rap and kind of mixing it all together. When I stood on stage watching these guys, it was basically like it was just a religious experience.
How do you think that all of those experiences of that era, how do you think that has shown up in your life today?
How do I think that has shown up in my life today? I think I look at life as more or less has a big production in the sense that it's always collecting, you know, energy and data and all this stuff to put off an event, you know, and whatever that event is, big or small. I think that's the way, you know, it's entertainment has helped me. I've watched these productions, I've seen these bands, I've seen all of this stuff, and I see how all of these big names and all these people that it takes to run to put it together. And it's really no different than people say running their businesses or running their lives or running, you know, it's just about having that collective unity of energy and
so collective energy, but also knowing that there's like a team aspect.
Yeah.
You can't do it all solo, if you will. And it's work, but it's also meant to be fun and entertaining.
Exactly.
And I would say that
100%.
sums up you and your personality even today. Like, you definitely work. You have a beautiful business and an insurance business that's multifaceted, and you're actually known as kind of the guy in the bar and restaurant insurance industry.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a really cool thing. And I've heard that and seen that in articles, and, you know, from, you know, it's not a self-proclaimed thing. It's a bigger than you thing, which is pretty amazing. So to know that, but then you have the other side of the business, the personal insurance side, which includes home and auto and life. But what's cool about all that, because you think, oh, insurance is boring, you found a way in a lot of ways to make all of it very entertaining and enjoyable. But more importantly, even through your business and going through policies, you entertain life and people and your company, your employees, and then the customers. And so I get that. I see that in you, in your social media. And I also, because I've gotten to spend so much time with you, I know that in you as a person. So.
It's all by, I mean, you're right. It's all very much larger than me, but it's also all by design by me. And I think still to this day, people have a pump the brakes sort of mentality when it comes to really putting out their true nature or what they really want to do out there, because they feel like they have to somehow structure themselves inside of some sort of a box because they are an attorney or they are an insurance person or they are an accountant. And it's like, those boxes they're long gone. Yeah. They don't have to be there anymore.
They don't have to. And you found a way to kind of create the rules of your experience.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that when I work with people as well, and you were doing it long before you and I ever connected, but that's one thing that, one of the biggest messages that I really would love to share with people in general is that the minute you live by the rules of what society says you can or can't do, or even by your past history's rules of, well, I would never been somebody who had this baking business, or I was never somebody who owned their own company, or so I'm always just gonna be this employee. That's your own rules based on your own history, or the rules of, well, the market says we can't do this, so therefore we don't. What I love about you is how you live by rules that you create within an industry, and without being aggressive as far as like being against the industry, without fighting an industry. You do it. You still work and serve people within an industry, amongst the policies, amongst the different layers of it, but in your own set of rules. And that is an incredibly difficult thing for people to grasp or even then to do.
Yeah. And it's incredibly difficult at times for me. I can just even revert back to remembering going to, and still going to a lot of these insurance functions and being the only person there that is wearing, Vans with his dogs printed on them and jeans and a t-shirt that, says bar and restaurant insurance. That's just who I am. And a lot of these people will be quick to judge just based on an appearance, even for somebody that, like myself, where it's like, okay, that's cool. But I think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is that if you just work hard and you are absolutely true to what it is you're trying to accomplish, but you're there for the service of others to do 100% right all the time, none of that other stuff really matters.
Yeah, I think you definitely picked up on something that is a key part of being authentic.
Yeah.
Authenticity isn't how you please others or how you show up for others to fit some environment or some culture or something. Authenticity is showing up in yourself just as who you are, as long as it's in a mindful and honorable way. First to you, and then in whatever business or experience that you're in. So, when that external honoring, it's like having your integrity. It's consistent.
Yeah.
It always shows up as being mindful. It's making sure that you have the best interest of people in mind, even if they're not going to like what you have to say.
Well, yes. And now I think of another point by you saying that. There's people that wear suits that end up screwing people over more so than, so it's like we're so fixated on this whole thing of you have to look a certain way, be a certain appearance, color, whatever, when at the end of the day, no, you just need to be doing right.
Yeah. And that is a huge thing. So for the people who do listen and pick this up, authenticity will trump image any single day of the week. But you have to be consistent with it. And your intention, integrity, honoring yourself, and as a result, the natural honoring of others will happen. And if you do that really well, there's no other things that you have to hide behind. There's no other things you have to make shiny, to distract. You just show up. And much like that, I think I went to a wedding, which I try to go to very few weddings as possible in my lifetime, because it's definitely, I think you can appreciate
the food's
that.
not that great.
Anyway, mainly because, it's irrelevant. But the point is that I went to a wedding and I wore a jacket for the first time, and like I actually had to find it and then, get it cleaned and ironed up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I actually had to buy a white button down.
Did you feel uncomfortable?
Sure. No, but I was going to a very dear friend's wedding, and it was kind of a gray motif, gray jacket, white shirt motif. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll do that. That sounds fun. But it was weird.
Yeah.
But it did make me reflect on how grateful I am to just have whatever style. And I've done so many beautiful things in my life, as have you. And to be able to do it in your own style, because I remember the early days where I was in a suit every single day. Right. You probably did some of that stuff too on some level. You never did that?
No, I never had to.
Never had to.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you're not running around in a suit hanging out with Van Halen, because they're not going to care. But that's a pretty impressive thing. So, but to be in a whole conference and be, like you said, the guy wearing a bar and restaurant tee, that takes some...
Well, it takes a little bit of balls in one aspect, but you bring back the effect that a lot of people know me and I have a reputation as the bar restaurant insurance guy. And again, this was something that did not happen overnight. I've been doing this 21 years now, and so I will tell you, I felt like an ass, my first 5 years, because I was not, and maybe longer, because I was not secure with myself, but I was who I was. I was always authentic, but I still had a a quality within me, which I think a lot of us are, where we didn't have as much confidence.
Right.
Now that I'm older into the game, the confidence is there. The words speak for themselves, and the work is spoken for itself.
Right.
But if I didn't keep, like after 5 years, if I didn't keep with that, of who I truly was, I could have easily been the guy in the suit and gone work for another bigger agency and probably made more money and been miserable.
And that consistency was a big part of the game. And, authenticity and loving yourself are a work in progress.
Yes.
And confidence and releasing insecurity. Because I remember when I started coaching, I had no degree in it. I didn't even call myself a life coach because that really wasn't who I was. I'm more of a mentalist, a brain training expert, somebody who can work on a lot of different levels.
Yeah.
But all of my experience came through my own changing life. And so, but man, I was really like, oh crap. Like I felt like in some ways I had no business being in this space because I didn't talk the same. I didn't look the same. I didn't act the same. None of the language was completely different. It was something I invented.
Right.
And so it took me
That's
a couple years to do the same thing where I was like, oh man, like I'm going to stay consistent.
Right.
I know this is it. I just have to now grow into it. Is that kind of what you did, is grow into it?
Yes, that's exactly what had happened. And so I had an interesting conversation yesterday with somebody, actually it was my staff. We were talking, and a lot of my staff, one of them in particular has been with me for 18 years now. So 18 years, think about that. Okay.
That's a long time.
And a lot can happen in 18 years, and just literally in the last, decade, the last 10 years, a lot has happened with just my transition as a human and what's gone on. But, a lot of people are like, are you scared of, not even scared, but like, do you worry about getting old? And I really just laugh at that question because it's like, what a gift to wake up and have the next day to do something, to be able to, and better, to be able to keep conquering what you're there to conquer in a good way with the knowledge that you've encompassed from the day before and from many years before. And so I laugh because I'm like, I had a good time in my 20s. I had a really good time in my 20s, maybe too good of a time in my 20s. And so while I have zero regrets of all the stuff that I did, zero, it was a good time, I would never, ever go back to that because it's not where I am now. And I'm so grateful for, at 45, if we're putting a number on it, I'm so grateful for where I am at now, and just every minute, and having this this actual presence with you in this moment, feeling better about that than any other aspect of what is in my past or what could possibly be in my future, because it's such a great thing. And having that knowledge, even in business, yes, the confidence and the buildup and all that is what has gotten me, to here.
Yeah. And I'm excited even for that. There's many messages already in this that people can pick up, but another one that was really cool is like, for people out there who may still feel insecure, it doesn't mean it's wrong, or doesn't mean it's who you are. Sometimes it just means you're still working to grow in to the bigger version of who you are. Yeah. And if it feels good and the intention and the integrity is there and you're being authentic to yourself, give yourself time. Know and trust that you will grow into your bigger self. And that's exactly what you did. It's exactly what I had to do in our own ways, which is pretty cool. I want to get to a couple of things that are really important. One, working out, and that'll be, I think, after, because to me, Star Wars is next. Star Wars, I know for me, was a big thing growing up.
Huge.
And I look at a few different things that I watched, and hindsight going, oh yeah, I guess I was thinking about this stuff long before I even understood. I was into samurais and ninja stuff as a kid, like really big. That's all I thought about. And then Star Wars came out, and I was just like, I remember just staring and thinking about the Force and all of that. And I just, that era. Like, tell me more about Star Wars, because I mentioned even before we started how awesome of a guy you are, but listen, you work out. I truly know you as an elite athlete. There's a beautiful intensity. There's there's an energy about you that is what I would say like this very powerful type A personality, and there's a male energy that's really a high male energy, I would say. But as you said, and it's also what I know you as, is a sensitive and emotional guy. And you grew up with a father, you know, your biological dad who's been in your life forever, the whole time, and he's a bodybuilder.
Yep, still to this day.
Still to this day, and I've seen some pictures of him. Looks amazing at how old?
71.
71, and he's still competing in bodybuilding, which is amazing. So you grew up around that. I've seen some of your pictures of you being in this really buff dude. Yeah. Because you've gotten into that at various times, and now you train in a different way, but you still are really ripped and really healthy. So there's that guy. Where did the sensitive guy come in? How did Star Wars kind of play into your spirituality and into the role of that you're finding yourself in now?
You know, Star Wars is an attraction on different levels to different people, and probably, you know, definitely has different meanings. And I think, you know, to some people, obviously it's an entertainment value. It's a fictional, you know, story that people go watch and they escape, and that's really all it is to them. To me, it was always a interconnectivity with who I am, and it gave meaning to, as silly as it may sound, like a movie or, you know, something like that can give anybody some sort of meaning or outlook on real life. That's really what it did for me. And George Lucas was no dummy. I mean, George Lucas, if you really look at the old interviews and you analyze the aspects of why he wrote Star Wars, how he wrote it, what his beliefs are, and all that, there's a lot of truth to the fact that this wasn't just a fictional space entertainment value. Yeah, there's so many hidden messages inside of it that.
And he's a very connected dude.
He's a very connected dude. Yes. So when you want to get into the big landscape of things that we won't get into on this podcast, they're just there. You know, he's one of those guys. So when I look at it, it was like, wow. You know, when you look at the aspects of the Jedi and the Force and the fact that we are all one energy, you know, and how Yoda talks about, you know, the Force is the energy of all. It's no different between the rock that's out here as opposed to the energy that's around you, and it's all interconnected and all that. And it's a very powerful message for anybody that wants to take it. And, you know, at the same time, you're entertained by it as well, you know, and you know, the Jedi are, it's kind of funny because some people will, you know, they've created religions around this and camps and all sorts of, you know, crazy fun stuff, which is all great. I mean, you know, me being more of a spiritual being, I just have a very big connectivity with, you know, the aspect of what a Jedi is, and being able to utilize a lot of the things that they talk about in the movie, maybe in my own life, you know, whether it's through meditation or through my exercising or, you know, stuff like that.
And it's really interesting if you were to go back and look at the original Star Wars series and now kind of what the new stuff looks like, which is a lot like the old. Right. When you go back and look at that stuff, there's a lot of spirituality in that. Just like Kung Fu Panda, just like Avatar. Yeah. You know, I make a joke sometimes, like everything I learned from Kung Fu Panda, but there's a lot of spirituality in that, and in Star Wars, the original, and then also in Avatar. That's really cool. Yeah. Like meditation. Meditation's a big one. Yeah. When did you start meditating? And did you call it meditation?
I don't know the answer to that. I know that it's something that, you know, I started meditating, and I didn't call it meditation when I started running because, and that was at 9 years old. So I would go for a run, and I would think about any and everything that I needed to think about that would come to me from a different place.
Different space.
Yeah.
Not from the front of the head.
Not from the front. Yeah.
Yeah. And so for people who are listening and thinking about, really meditation is a simple practice of calming the front mind down to allow you to tap into your bigger back part of your mind. Yeah. Spirituality can be as simple as you thinking about the zoomed out thoughts in your own experience of life, or it can be as big as tapping into something that comes a download, a thought, a consciousness that comes in from bigger. But spirituality is as simple as thinking about the zoomed out thoughts of your own life.
Yeah.
That's as simple as it can get.
And it's funny to me that, and even myself at times, where you get so busy with the day in and day out, and you feel like you have these schedules you have to adhere to, how much you can really miss out on getting those downloads and that information by just not keeping yourself quiet for just a little bit.
When did you start doing it more deliberately, sitting down, being still, kind of doing it that way?
At the beginning of my, like 5 years ago, beginning of my 40s.
Right. What was the reason? Why did you elevate to that space?
I was ready for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how have you seen it start to affect you? Like, you know, being someone who's very active, very intense, like, you know, we've talked before, we've hung out. It's hard for you to sit still, you know, for more than 10 minutes at the most.
All my meditations, or all my sitting in silence, or my run meditations, or all that, have conjured up all of my ideas.
Yeah.
All of my things that I'm working on now, so just that proof positive of my creativity aspect that's gone up 100%. That's why I continue to do it.
Yeah. So then what's the next step for you? Where do you feel like, so you started doing it and you've made some transitions, and, you know, we've talked about our connection and how that's assisted in channeling. What has that allowed you to do? Like what direction do you feel yourself going now? What's the next steps? What do you see your skill level going to?
So, yeah, not to run a commercial for you on your own podcast, but, you know, ever since, you know, seeing you, you know, multiple months now, it's really helped with a clear mindset of having a common practice that is really working for me, and being able to collect even more information, but also having a more of a confidence builder and an understanding in things that I can journal about and download with you, and really gives me, even at a phase in my career, this far in my career, even more confidence to build that career even further in the way that now I really want to build it, and to take myself out of situations that I may have grown successfully but may not want to be in anymore. And so you have helped me create a different confidence to get out of something that has become so systematic that I've been afraid to get out of, because of it having maybe consequences that I'm not ready for. Not necessarily good nor bad, just different. When you're used to so much maybe financial gain this way, and you're a little bit, you know, afraid of, is that financial gain going to come this other way if I do this and really enjoy myself? So you've been a catalyst 1,000-fold to help me with that level of authenticity and confidence to move to this next level of where I feel is going to be the ultimate in my life.
Yeah, and to say a couple things there, even now, because I think for all of us to take a step in this direction, sometimes we feel we have to give up something over here. Mm-hmm. And what you're experiencing now is it's this and this, not this or this.
Yeah.
And that's really what you're starting to experience is as this new, bigger direction, and to speak just a little bit on it, which is really you're a bigger brand than even the bar and insurance kind of restaurant, bar, restaurant, insurance side of you.
Right.
And you have so much more to share, and it can be that and this next level for you.
Right.
And that's what you're really starting to step into. And before, the old mind was this or this.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be that. And so what I see is not only your business, both on the personal insurance and the commercial insurance side growing tremendously, but I also see then all of that springboarding this other piece of you, which is you have so much content and so much to offer and so many beautiful messages. So I love that. The other thing I would say is, for those of you who may be thinking about, well, how is this applicable? What does this mean? Like meditating, connecting, being able to channel. And by the way, we all channel. You know, any idea that doesn't come from the front of your brain because you read it in something, it comes from some backspace, that's channeling. Anytime you think about pizza and then your partner says, hey, let's have pizza, you know, that's channeling, you know, this beautiful universe. Anytime you think about somebody and they call you, That's channeling. Channeling is happening when you go to bed at night and you sleep. You're channeling energy through you to heal, cover, and reset. So this is nothing unusual. It's something we all do. But to do it deliberately, that part can be unusual.
Yeah.
And if you wouldn't mind to share a generic, or you can keep it generic just for the sake of your experience, but there was a moment you shared with me about being able to go into a room of a bunch of people where it was almost like you were on the hot seat, if you will, of people wanting to understand their insurance coverage,
right,
understanding where they were, and you held not only such a big energy in a big space, but almost this channeling space to be able to know exactly what they were asking, what they wanted, and to be able to really like lace that through. Tell me about that and how you translate meditation into affecting you in that way.
So the meeting that you're alluding to was one that, still to this day, I live in a lot less, but I live in fear, and I live in some aspects of not as much confidence as I probably should have, because you sit in a room with other individuals that you all of a sudden in your mind, and rightfully or not rightfully so, make this interpretation that they know more than you just because they're
normal
in that room.
Humanness. That's just normal humanness,
right? So now what meditation and basically channeling and all that has allowed me to do is to walk into this same room and really collectively understand as I'm in there and I look at these energies, that I am the specialist. I am the person that they have sought out to help them, to give them the advice. So now when I'm being asked the questions, it's one of those things where I can sit there, collect my thoughts, be calm, and I give the answer that is necessary at that time. And if I don't have the exact answer, I'm able to back it up with information that I have brought with me in order to be confident about all that. So it's definitely a different mindset as opposed to if I would have walked in that meeting 10 years ago. I would have been lost, scared. I mean, just not able
Stuttered,
to perform.
Almost like anytime
exactly.
They pressed you on anything, you would have been kind of doing the back pedal.
Yeah, and this time it was more of me being the elder in the room of elders, if that makes any sense, being stern, but in a polite way. Like, no, this is not correct. I know you make an assumption that you know this based on your experience with insurance, but you're not correct. This is how it works. And so to be able to be that confident and to be that way is very relieving.
So really, and if we break it down a little bit, you channeled confidence.
Yes.
You channeled trust.
Yep.
You didn't just exist in the front of your mind, which is where fear, doubt, worry, insecurities, that all lives. There was some of that there.
Yeah, of course.
And that's because that's, again, normal humanness. We're not going to get away from that. You go to speak, you go to do something different, there's going to be that talk because that's normal programming.
There's that talk when you, even to yourself, when you leave the meeting and you feel like you've done, you're like, okay, I did an okay job. But what is really ironic about that situation is I have a friend that was in that meeting because that's how I have nurtured that account the last 11 years. And there's 6 people in this room, but to get the input back from the friend about the talk that was going on when you're not there, it's kind of, again, like self-confidence because everything was like, dude, you handled yourself really good. Like you were awesome in there. Like, thanking me.
Yeah. And so channeling trust, channeling confidence, channeling, not just operating from the front of the mind and that scurried mind and thinking like, am I saying something right? Are they receiving it? Right. You were just speaking from a bigger place, trusting in your bigger self, knowing that your intention was pure, the message you were saying was in your truth, and you didn't focus so much on outcomes as much as how you were showing up.
And yes, and another really valid point I think that is good to understand is that people are always hearing information from other people. And just because they hear information from other people does not mean that information needs to be validated in the aspect of what it is that you're trying to portray to them. So just because, Joe is talking to his attorney about insurance coverage, his attorney's an attorney, not an insurance agent. Okay.
Right.
And this can be an example in any aspect of anybody's business.
Right.
But just because Joe's talking to his attorney about insurance coverage and that this is the way it is, doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. So being able to go in there and just know that you're going to hold your own. You're not trying to be the attorney. You're not giving legal advice. You're not giving accountant advice. You're giving, in my aspect, insurance advice. Right. And it's okay to be confident to tell them that your attorney doesn't know what he's talking about. Right. It's like, it's okay.
Yeah. Not to appease people. Like, this is on any level. If you're in a truth and you have a knowing, you don't have to defend your truth.
Right.
You don't have to try to invalidate somebody else's. You don't have to validate or make them feel better about what they got from somebody else.
Correct.
You just keep it simple.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool information. Now, to me, in that and other things that you've shared with me, that's using the force.
Yeah, definitely using the force.
Because you had to energetically kind of project out an energy and a centeredness and a power that allowed you to...
It's a Jedi mind trick.
Yeah, wow.
This is totally what it is.
No, but speaking of that, the Jedi mind is when they talk about the dark side and the force, and you're really talking about the negative, the ego,
right,
versus the higher self. I mean, that's really a lot of what they're breaking down. We watched that last movie, the most recent one that came out, and there was a lot of talk about the ego.
That's a good point. The dark side really is all about the ego and somebody's need to be everything.
Yeah, choosing greed, choosing to conquer, choosing to dominate from this egoic place, versus to be a Jedi and lead by the light and lead by this example and lead by a higher way.
Yeah.
And that's really a lot of, when you break it down, what that is.
Completely, yeah.
Well, that's a pretty cool thing to hear, and I do appreciate your kind words. Really, what I'll tell anyone is that if whoever puts in this work, because the work that I do with anybody, it's simple work. There's some it's brain training. It's tapping into this bigger construct of the mind. It's being able to channel energy and to channel this way of being. And the energy, again, is nothing spiritual. You channel energy when you go to bed and sleep at night.
Right.
Because that's how you heal and recover.
Right.
From sickness, from tiredness, from whatever injury or whatever else. It is not some special thing. We all do it. But to channel it during the day in a way that's going to create a harmony, flow, abundance, bigger mind, bigger outcomes.
Yeah.
That's magical.
Yeah, for sure, 100%.
But you use the same energy to do it.
You use the same energy. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk working out and training and how that's been one of the things that's kind of led you to this next step in your journey.
Yeah.
You've been working out for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I've been running and lifting weights since I was a kid. I mean, 8 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then today, what do your workouts look like, and how are they different than like the good old days, if you will?
Well, the good old days, I would go to the gym for an hour and a half to 2 hours at a time, and I'd do a set and walk around for 5 minutes, and have invisible lat syndrome, ILS. Walk around like this, but and that was all fine. I mean, it was good. I probably a lot more man in me then. Now it's really about at a minimum 20 minutes a day to 45 minutes a day of. How
many days a week?
Well, every day of the week, but actually like physical how do I say, damage to my body, I probably limit it to about 5 days a week, and the other 2 is more or less like just very much active stretching and always doing something with the body.
So healing, recovering, loving on the body, honoring it.
Exactly, all that sort of stuff. That's my water bottle. So anyways, the workouts now consist of a lot of what you had just said, and then mixing some weights in there, and then I run 5 days a week. I have a long run on the weekend, which is 8 to 10 miles in the trails. That's a really good escape for me. I enjoy that very much. I have some speed workout on the track on Wednesdays.
Escape or running towards yourself?
Um,
Running away from something or running towards
no, I'm definitely
yourself?
not running away from anything. I think it's more of it's more fantasy for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like I'm in a different world.
So it's more of adventure and play
Yeah.
in a space that you want to be in.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Because I do know people who try to escape through working out.
Yeah. No, I don't need to escape anything.
Yeah.
I like to go do it.
Yeah, I knew that. I just wanted to make sure everyone else knew that.
Yeah.
Because it's a pretty cool thing. Conversely, I work out 20, 30 minutes a day.
Mm-hmm.
I try to do some cardio, but I don't get a ton of cardio in just a lot of times, especially as of late. My schedule, I'm back to back, and maybe I have a half-hour window between things.
Yeah.
My ideal thing is to do some cardio, go for a run, come back, strength train, or mix the Airdyne in with my strength training workout, which is also great cardio, which is what we're going to do today, right?
Yeah,
we're going to We're going to play today. But what would you say to people who are listening and going, Jesus, 5 days a week? You work with some people. You've started. What's the movement? Tell me the movement that you started.
Yeah. So being in insurance and hospitality, in the hospitality space, I've also owned 13 bars and restaurants over my time as well. And so I've dealt with a lot of employees in that space. I know a lot of people that work in the space, a lot of business owners in the space of hospitality, bars, restaurants, nightclubs, hotels, that sort of stuff. But I've noticed a complete meltdown of people taking care of themselves in that in that area, and
exercise, food, all of it.
Yeah, all of it. Meditation, mental aspect, financial wellness, any and all of that. And so I have a very my heart's very close to that part of the industry because that's where I really came from. At the end of the day, I'm not in insurance, I'm in hospitality. I mean, I grew up staring at pictures of Eddie Van Halen, It was entertainment for me. It was those things where that dream helped me create the goal of being in the hospitality, which I'm in now. I just provide a service, which happens to be insurance. So in order for me to combine that passion with my passion for my lifelong ability to be in physical fitness and to be a quote unquote athlete, I wanted to combine the two, and so I've created a movement called Healthy Hospitality, and it's something that through my not my private brand, but through my personal brand, I am the Delo, which I have a website to that same name. I'm creating a program where people in that space can now have a place to come to collectively get together and learn really simplistic aspects of health and wellness that can help them through their days. And it's not stuff that is rocket science. It's very simplistic, but they're tools, and it's creating a community for them to be able to feel like it's their community and not Joe Musclehead's community that they're never going to follow or be a part of. I'm just a regular dude that's in the hospitality space that's trying to will be giving my tricks of the trade and things that I do on a very simplistic level to help them so that they can just improve their health and wellness by 20, 30%. They're going to find themselves more productive, feeling better, because the physical is important to keep the mental in check.
Yeah. And what I've definitely done within my path and clarity and spiritual wisdom is understand how less is more when it comes to training.
Yes.
And it's about just trying to stay consistent as possible. But that's why it's a really small amount of time for me. Just 20 minutes. I can get it. I can actually do it all in 15 minutes.
It's perfect.
I have a gym in my backyard. You have a gym in your garage. Yep. It can be as simple as that. You can literally have it in your bedroom. And by that, I mean, get out of bed, do some sit-ups, do some push-ups, do some lunges.
Yeah.
Something as
You don't need weights. It's your body.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of weight vests because weight vests do so much for elevating the experience without creating an increase of pain or struggle or even intensity. Because for your body to carry a little extra weight with a weight vest, everything has to elevate to do that. And at first it takes some time to adjust, but it just enhances
everything
that you do. But more importantly, people don't have to do a lot to do this, right?
No.
A couple days a week.
Yeah.
What do you think for somebody starting off in the hospital, like whether they're like an owner or a chef or maybe anybody, it doesn't really matter.
100% mobility. I mean, I'm creating an ebook right now, Healthy Hospitality ebook. We should be done with it in the next couple of weeks. That will release on the website along with a couple podcasts pertaining to it. I've linked myself up with some, high-end chef out here. When I say high-end, somebody that's been doing it for a long time, very good chef, but has been in the industry, and he's been through the gamuts of, the partying too much to now, getting on the healthy track. So I've aligned myself with people such as himself, and then one of the top fitness trainers in not just Arizona, but in the nation, writes for Men's Health and does all this sort of stuff. So by aligning myself with people that are, smarter than me in their different facets of the business and trying to combine them, and I have others, and hopefully you will also be a part of this group that will, again, create these programs to help people on a simplistic level. So back to your question, the first thing starting out is mobility. People just getting up, and before shift, if you're going to go work 10 hours, stretch yourself out. And here's, basically links in the book are going to be places you can go to YouTube and you can see, 5 of the most simplistic stretches that are just going to help you feel better as you're working a 10-hour shift to do that. And then, when you get your 6 to hopefully 8 hours of rest, if you can get that done, and then you want to wake up the next day and do a workout, here's a very simple, 10-minute body weight workout. Do some lunges, do some squats, body weight squats, do some push-ups, that sort of thing. Right. And then maybe work some more mobility into it. But I think mobility is so overlooked that people wonder why their backs are tight, or if they're reaching to put the ice, up into the filler and all that stuff, and they end up pulling a muscle. A lot of this stuff can be avoided by just, acknowledging that your body is there.
Right. And that's something that I'd like to talk a little bit more about from my side of it. But what I heard you say was just, it's really simple. It starts with some simple stretching that your book would provide those. And so that's going to be out how soon?
A couple weeks. And
anyone, it doesn't matter what industry they're in, they can totally follow this.
Oh yeah,
and it'll benefit them.
Really, it's a booklet not just for hospitality, even though it is based, and the groups will be providing that community. But it's based for any busy entrepreneur that's traveling, that's doing, it just doesn't have the time, but they need to have the time.
Right, and so it's that mobility. It's so underrated. It's key.
Yeah.
Because what in my approach, from a spiritual approach to training and to stretching and any of that, we're meant to be in partnership with our body. We're not a dictator. We don't say to our body, "Hey, you're doing this today, and this is just how it is. You're just going to have to deal."
Right.
That's what we believe under the illusion that we are in a dictatorship over our body, and we tell it what to do. And even like all the athletes, and because I work with a lot of pro athletes, and it's the same concept. It's and they would tell you, oh, like if I open and close my hand, oh, my mind's making my hand do this. No, my mind is asking my hand to do this. My body kind of assesses the situation, goes, I'm okay with that. I'm agreeable. Let's do that. But any athlete will tell you there's a lot of times when they're trying to get their eye on the ball, or they're trying to perform in football or in hockey or in swimming or whatever else that it's been in fighting. And it's like there's days where they're a half second too slow. There's days where they don't have the coordination, because no matter how much their mind says do this, even something they've done so many times, their body's like, I'm not in it today.
Totally.
And many of my athletes, the thing they always want to be in is in that zone. And I work with athletes to create that zone. And you can deliberately create a zone every single day and be in that zone. And that's one of the biggest benefits that they get. But as a human, that same concept is there. If you understand the basic principles of your body is meant to be in partnership with you, if you love on it through some stretching, tell it you're grateful just for the fact you still get to walk and move, and you listen to the areas that are tight, because those areas is the body's way of communicating to create more flow.
Right.
If it's the hamstrings, if it's the hips, so as you're stretching, you're saying thank you to your body. You're loving on your body and listening to the feedback of areas that maybe you want a little extra in, or the body's asking for a little more in. that relationship that you build, that partnership that you get to build with your body, becomes one of trust.
Yeah.
Versus like, fear, doubt, worry, whatever else it is, anger, irritation. A lot of people will look in the mirror and not be happy at themselves. That negativity is intense. So stretching, mobility can be an opportunity to say, I love you and I care about you, and I care about myself, and I care about the partnership. Training, same way. It's not about beating yourself up.
No.
It's about partnering with your body.
Right.
It's about letting it loose to be free. And you've done a little transition in that space because we've talked about this. Mm-hmm. And how's that felt for you to just kind of like set your body free through training?
It's felt amazing in the sense that, as you alluded to before, and I've even written it down through one of our sessions, less is more. And I do find myself doing less, and I find out that when I go for my long run, if it's a week where I've done less, or maybe I took an extra day of rest and I really just concentrated on just listening to the body, I'll go out on that run and I'll smoke it. Like, I'm like, whoa, where did this come from? I've done this run 1,000,000 times, and here I am running a minute faster each mile in miles 7 and 8, very little effort, Whereas, more times than not, when I'm just trying to push myself through it just to get it done, it's a different situation.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really great because someone who trains as much as you do, as consistent as you do, you can do it without abuse. You can do it and listen to your body. You can do it and evolve the partnership. And the side effect, not because it's the intention, but the side effect is even a bigger outcome than you thought you could do with your mind alone.
I think the biggest thing that when you're dealing with a type A personality such as myself, as I've been self-diagnosed,
and other diagnosed.
Yeah, when you're dealing with a type A personality, it's still within me that if you miss something that's on the schedule, then your whole world's going to crumble. Mm-hmm. Like, oh my God, if I miss this run, I'm going to be, you all of a sudden have this unrealistic analyzation that, the 4 years of running that you've been doing is all of a sudden going to crumble because you missed one stupid run. Yeah, it's amazing. Still happens to this day.
Yeah.
But that could be the best thing that happened to you, because then you go out 2 days later and you're like smoking it.
Right. And if we were to assess you in that level you operate, owning your own business, doing, really being at the top of your game, both in business, physically, when the things you're able to do, how far you run, because you have some really long distance runs, you compete running, trail running, some of the training you do, you're at a top level. Like when you're training in the gym, you're training with guys that are half your age, and keeping up, if not doing more. I would say physically you're at the top level. I think in the business and the industry, that's clear that you're at the top level. In a lot of ways, you're operating at a high elite level. It takes work to get there, but more importantly, it takes you continuing to find yourself, partner with yourself, love on yourself. But none of this, and this is really where I'm going with this, is none of this doesn't come without humanness.
Right.
You feeling that, like, man, I missed this run, and there's still those ridiculous thoughts like, everything's going to go by the wayside now because I missed out on this thing. Yeah. That's humanness.
Yeah.
In our lives, your life, my life, anybody's life that's really living at a high level, people trying to start down this road, they feel like their humanness is too big for them to get anywhere, to even get started. And that's not true.
No.
Because you and I live with humanness every single day. And if I can do it, because I know how messed up my life used to be, and somebody as dominant as you in the human mind can do it and really step back, start to access the bigger mind to operate from a much bigger place in life. And that's been over the course of many, many years. Mm-hmm. If we can do this, anybody can do it.
Right.
Because you and we're easily could be just a couple of cavemen,
Oh, easily. There's nothing special about who I am. It's what I've done with who I am, in that sense. I mean, I'm just the other night I was eating chocolate granola with whipped cream on it because I was hungry at 8:30 at night. I mean, I'm as human as they get.
Yeah, and I want to make that distinction because, like, people, it's really important for people to understand we're always going to be human.
Yeah,
humanness runs deep through all of us. Yeah, we're never going to escape it.
No,
it's if we can let our humanness be secondary to our higher selves, and that's not always going to happen in everyday life.
No, not at all. That's why it takes daily cognitive focus.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody the other day. I was working with a client, and training the mind, training mindfulness, actually as a thing, training intention. You have to actually train to think about intention.
Right.
It's not just something that happens.
Yeah.
We're not built that way anymore.
No.
Maybe back thousands and thousands of years ago, we were built differently. But today's human, no matter what age, boomer or millennial or anyone else, whatever label you want to put on it, we're not trained this way. We have to train for mindfulness. We have to train the brain to understand, to keep things simple. We have to train to actually use the back of the brain. These are all things that we're capable of doing. Even training to communication that is loving.
Yeah.
Like, that was a big one for me because I grew up in a family that the language wasn't necessarily a loving language.
Right.
So all this stuff has to be trained. And so wherever anyone's at in the process, there's hope for all of us.
There's hope for everybody, for sure. Yeah, it doesn't even matter. And that, as I look at the hospitality industry and you look at the quote unquote, the younger 20-year-olds that are just getting into it, and you're hoping to make a difference in the aspect that, hey, look, check this out. Don't necessarily go 100% down the path of, cocaine and liquor every night after your shift. It's hip to be healthy nowadays. And then you look at the older, the 45-year-old chef that's been through hell and back again, but now wants to collectively rejuvenate his body and be healthy because his or her, situation as an owner has changed, because now they're actually running their business as opposed to playing in their business, and they have a family, and they have, they have physical aspects to them that they want to look better, feel better, do all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's definitely something for everybody.
Yeah. And it's so much easier to just be a little bit more mindful.
Yeah.
Because everything gets easier.
And it doesn't have to be that complicated or that difficult.
Very
and
simple
I think
stuff.
that's the message that I don't think that is the message I am going to portray out there with what I'm putting out
Simple.
there. Yeah.
And something that is doable for anyone at any level.
Right.
And knowing that it doesn't mean perfection or that you have to act a certain way.
Correct.
You get to be you in whatever space you're in.
Yeah.
Just add a little bit of these simple things to honor yourself in different ways. And it'll only enhance your life.
Correct.
And you're going to be human still. You don't have to go escape to the mountains. You don't have to quit your job and go do something else. Just be where you're at.
Yeah.
And just love on yourself a little bit more through some mobility, through some training, through some mindfulness, through some
good eating.
Yeah, good eating, breathing to the back of the head, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I love what you're doing. I'm excited to see the brand continue to get built. And the Delo, IamTheDelo.com, right, is
Yes.
the thing. You are the Delo.
I am, since birth.
Since birth. And the force is definitely strong within you. Again, if you check him out on Instagram, he's got so much entertainment value, and you actually talk more too now. You're starting to do more stuff on positive messaging and stuff like that, which is really great to see. So if you're looking for just a positive influence, definitely check him out. You can find me, which I'm starting to do these podcasts and getting a little bit more used to it at the.alfuentes, only because Alfuentes was taken. Otherwise, I'd just be Alfuentes.
How dare they?
I know. I messaged the guy, and he's like, I want $1 million, and I go, I know I'm worth it, but I'm not paying.
I'll be
No, so thank you so much.
Yeah,
I
thanks for
appreciate
having
the
me.
time.
This was great.